This is Real Life with Deb Waterbury, a real show for real people with real issues. And now, here's your host, Dr. Deb Waterbury.
Welcome back to the next episode of Real Life with, oh, you look like you were caught in a headlight there. Real Life with Deb Waterbury.
We're here. Wait till you see what we got for you.
I'm here with Karen Wendling. We're into a new area. It really does come off of relationships, but it's a new category. I think we're only doing 2 weeks on it, but we're talking about confrontation, which really does, as I said, follow relationship, because that's where you're going to have confrontations. Sometimes you're just going to have people you're not in relationship with. But there is a way to confront, and we'll talk about that, I think, next week, or we may have talked about it last week. I don't remember what next week. We're talking about that next week. But what do we do when we are in being confronted? Because we have a tendency when someone's coming at you to want to defend. I mean, that's
fight or flight. That's how God has built us.
Yes.
So, and most of the time, well, not me. I was going to say most of the time we would flight.
I don't
but most of the time my defenses are up, and boy howdy, let me tell. Yeah.
And it does. It's a personality thing. Most people avoid confrontation. You and I don't, but we are in the minority. I don't avoid confrontation because I'm very prideful, and I recognize that. And so some people, if someone confronts me, I've learned to do that in a less than prideful way, but I know that my need to confront is, you will not wrong me. And I know that that's an ungodly response.
Right.
But now it's kind of become this, I want to get this right. I want to make this right. Let's talk about this.
That's good.
And that's the godly way to do that. But it didn't start that way. But for the majority of people, most people will avoid confrontation. So if somebody's coming at you and confronting you, it's the fight or flight. Most is the flight. So why do you think that is? Why do most people want to avoid a confrontation?
Well, it's a personality thing, don't you think?
Yeah.
Like they just aren't confronters, or they don't know how to handle it, or they don't have the proper tools to be able to respond back to that. Like, in my defense, let me tell you why I did that.
Right.
And I think a lot of it has to do with how they're brought up and their background, don't you think? Like, it's their personality, for sure. Right.
And so, if your response when someone comes to you, and again, it doesn't have to be in a relationship. It could be, somebody at the store, your cart went in front of their cart and they confront you right there. What do you do right there? So the deal with confrontations is, if you are being confronted by someone, there's a huge opportunity for dissension. And that's what Satan loves. So it is when someone is confronting you, and some people will confront in love, and we have to respond appropriately. Most confrontations don't begin that way. Some do, and that's your response. As I've said before, you are totally responsible for your response. But when a confrontation is happening, whether a godly confrontation or not, there's an opportunity for sin.
Right.
A golden opportunity. And so, again, as I've said over and over again, whether or not that becomes sin for you is on you completely. Whether that person is going to be able to handle the confrontation that they're giving in a godly way, you don't get to decide that. And you don't get to make that happen one way or the other. We really got to play in our field. You know what I mean? We got to stay over here on our side of the line. My side of the line is, all right, this person is confronting me. It doesn't feel good.
Right.
Nobody likes to be confronted truly. What you want is you want to be heard. All of us want our sides heard. So you're being confronted. You know it doesn't feel good. You know you've got lots of things going on in your brain. Where are you going to go with this? That's what we have to decide. When I'm what I've learned, and now I'm sliding down towards 60, I'm getting to the place where at least I'm finally getting to learn this. Well, yeah, I am. And so in terms of that, all these years, I'm finally at the place where, okay, somebody confronts me, instead of in my head thinking, all right, I'm going to say this, I'm going to say that, I'm going to say that, which is what I've always done in the past. Now it's, okay, I've got, there's got to be a way to turn this away from sin.
Right.
What do I do right now, no matter what they're saying to me? What do I do right now to turn this away from sin? Not their sin, my sin.
How you're going to respond.
Yes, because
you're only responsible to God.
And whether or not this situation becomes sinful, is whether it becomes sinful for me. I'm not responsible for that person's sin. I'm responsible if I cause them to sin,
Right.
but I'm not responsible if they choose to sin. So I have got to, my brain now goes to, how can I move this situation so that it doesn't become sin? And you know, the beautiful thing about that is that if you can move the situation where it doesn't become sin for you, more than likely you'll move it to where it doesn't become sin for them.
Right.
Because it really is about coming to a godly place, a godly
restoration.
Yes.
Trying to restore, making
Absolutely.
sure, because if you've hurt them, if you've hurt them, then obviously you want to be able to hear them.
Absolutely.
But most of the time when people confront you, you're on defense. So
Yep.
you are not listening to understand, you're listening to reply.
Absolutely.
So if you take just a second, and even if you say out of your mouth, let me see if I understand
Absolutely.
what you're saying.
Which is what I have learned to do. I'm going, let me make sure I understand what you're saying, and then repeat back what you
they
just
said.
heard.
Yeah.
Because then either they can clarify, you
Right.
may have just heard it all wrong.
Right.
Because our human tendency is to be defensive.
Right.
And so we may hear inflection that didn't occur, or hear something that didn't really happen. So if I say, all right, let me make sure, and you're so right, let me make sure this is what you just said.
I understand what you're saying.
That I understand what you've just said.
Or what you're upset about, or whatever.
And then repeat it back to them.
And then it actually diffuses them in a sense, because she just heard me.
Yes,
I was
exactly.
heard right then.
And this is James.
Yes, she gets it.
This is James 1:19. This is being quick to hear, slow to speak, because then you'll be slow to anger. And that's just James 1. If you can in your brain. And again, it's difficult. This has been taking me a lot of years to get to this, because I have an opinion about everything. So it's been hard for me to learn to not speak, but to listen, and to be very slow to say anything. If you can put James 1:19 in practice, then the chances are very good you're going to come to a resolution. At least you won't be sinning. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you'll be doing everything in your power to keep that from happening.
Right.
Confrontations are going to occur. And one of the things that I've always told people, and I've said it from the pulpit actually, if someone is offended by something that you've done, then you have to take responsibility for the fact that they're offended by you. It doesn't mean you did it. They might have been misunderstanding, whatever. But if you can just say and take responsibility for the fact that this person is offended by something you said or did, or something they think you said or did, then understand that whether it's real or not, they're feeling that.
Right.
They're feeling the offense.
Yes.
Or they're feeling what they're confronting about. Just because it didn't happen doesn't mean they're not feeling it. So if you can understand, you need to deal with their feelings, not the truth, not defending yourself, but to be cognizant and patient and kind, and offer grace for the fact that this person's feeling this right now.
Right.
And if you can move toward the situation, taking their feelings in consideration first, because that's selflessness, that's godly behavior, that is loving your brother as you love yourself. That is exactly what that is.
Right.
So understand they're feeling what they're saying they're feeling.
Right. So you can say, I understand how you can feel that way.
Yes.
I could see how what I said could make you think that.
Yes.
Or I could see by my actions of what I did that you would interpret it that way.
Absolutely.
That
And
wasn't
then-
my
yes,
intention.
and then
That-
always though, and you're absolutely right, and then always follow that, please forgive me.
Yeah.
Please forgive me for anything that I have done to make you think that. But that wasn't my intention. I see how you did that. Please forgive me for having that happen. Or, because, what I've told my sons, and what I tell people all the time, is that if you want to turn away wrath, the proverb says, a kind word turns away wrath.
Right.
It does.
Yeah.
You try to be mad at somebody when they look at you and say, I am so sorry. Would you please forgive me? That is not what I intended. Nobody can stay mad at that.
Right.
Now they may be
That's so
frustrated
good.
because you just took the wind right out of their sails, and it may take them some time to not be aggravated acting. But the truth is, no one can stay angry when you say, I'm sorry. You're not taking responsibility for the action. You're taking responsibility for their feelings.
Right. That's good.
And you're saying, I see that you feel that way. I am so sorry that what I have done, or what I said, or what you think I said or did hurt you. Please forgive me for that.
Yeah.
You have just in a godly way diffused that
That's
situation.
a great way to look at that, and that's a great way to handle a situation like that, because they could be totally wrong.
Yes, but they still feel it.
They still feel it.
Yes.
Yeah, and you're responsible for helping them to not feel that way, I
Absolutely,
guess,
yes.
because it was you that caused the offense.
Exactly. And and at the end of the day, what difference does it make if you're right or wrong? What God's not going to ask you about. He's going to be like, yeah, you got about I counted 2,063 times that you were right. So you're on the green side of the ledger. That's not what's going to happen. What he's going to add, what he's going to say is you returned love for anger. Anger for love, or however you'd say that. You gave love in place of anger. You diffused this. You put yourself aside. Your human need. Flesh man wants to be right. Spirit man wants to diffuse. So you put aside your flesh man and said, it doesn't matter if I'm right or wrong. I am so sorry that you feel this way. And took the other person. What does Jesus say? The top 2 commandments: love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and body. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. Now, in terms of that means you're putting self aside and loving that person just as much as you love you. And you love you so much you want to be right. So what you want to do is love that person more than you love your need to be right. And that's godly. And God will say, well done, my good and faithful servant.
So good.
It really,
not easy to do.
No, it's so difficult. When somebody's coming at you with both barrels, it is hard to not want to come right back at them.
But it's okay, even if you handled it wrong, to go back and say, you know what, I didn't handle that right.
Absolutely.
I need you to forgive me for how I handled that, because I responded out of defensiveness. That was not my goal or my intention.
How many times have we had to do that with our children?
Lots.
Oh my goodness. I mean, and we should be doing that with our kids. You should do that with your spouses.
You're training your children
you
how to handle it right.
You absolutely are. You know, I heard my son say the other day to somebody, he said, at least my mom says she's sorry. And I do, because I have lots of times I got to say that. But, from the time he's been young, when I've lost it, I go back and say, I am so sorry that I handled that way. You should do that with your children, your husband, your friends, your family, because you're taking responsibility for your response. Once again, and then the anger just cannot stand when you respond in love. It just can't. What did Jesus? He totally diffused the Pharisees continually because his response was always one of love. They didn't know what to do with him. They were constantly sending somebody, okay, you go try to trap him. You go try to trap him. And that didn't work, but you go try. It's because he kept responding in love. That's just confusing. And so you want to diffuse a situation, respond in love. And the best way to do that is say, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry that you feel this way and that I've hurt you. Please forgive me.
Yeah, that was not my intention.
And you're not saying I did that. You're saying, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry that I caused you to feel this way. And then you allow, because when you take somebody else's heart in consideration, that then values them. Because when somebody is coming at you and they're angry, it's because they felt devalued. It's because they feel like you've done them wrong in some way, which is devaluing you. They feel like you've placed something above them, or you've done something that devalues them. So if you give them value and make them understand, I do value. I value your heart so much so that I want you to please forgive me. Then you can move. And again, we have to get past this thought of I'm now laying down like a rug and letting them run all over me. No, you're not. No. You're being God. You're being Jesus with skin on. That's what you're doing right there. Being God-like and Jesus with skin on. This is what we're called to. Lay aside self.
Well, and then when you have to confront someone, how you handle that.
The same thing. It's exactly. It's just a reverse of the same thing.
Exactly.
Confrontation's hard, but confrontation it's like one of those words that we put a negative spin on, but it's actually a godly thing. We're not supposed to harbor resentment. We're not supposed to talk to everybody else. We're supposed to go to our brother or sister and talk to them. That's confrontation.
Right.
But because our sin man, our flesh man has taken over confrontation, people tell me all the time, Deb, you're so confrontational. Thank you. That's what I want to say, is because they're not complimenting me because I've always tended to just go right back at people. But what the way we're created, God does so and creates us perfectly the way we should be, the way we're going to be.
Right.
So he created me this way.
Right.
The enemy tweaks it.
You cannot apologize for that.
No, the enemy tweaks it a hair, and my confrontation, who I am, becomes sinful because I use it in a sinful way.
Right.
But my need to address the issue, that's a godly thing.
Right.
And that's how God wants us to do.
So good.
We just have to be careful that we don't allow the enemy just a hair. He'll tweak it a hair, and then before you know it, you are running off course.
Right.
Understand that if you were created to confront, that you like to talk to people and get things out in the open, do it in a godly way. This is a godly characteristic. If you don't like to confront, then you need to ask the Lord to give you the courage, the fearlessness, and the wisdom to move toward confrontation from a godly standpoint, and stop thinking that confrontation's bad.
Right.
We make it bad.
Yeah.
Confrontation is what we should be doing. but we should be doing it in a godly way.
So good.
Yeah. So this is again nothing that you're going to get right away. I don't do it right most often. I know what to do. It's kind of like stopping at a stop sign.
Right.
I know I should, but sometimes I roll right through it.
Sometimes it's a Michigan stop.
Exactly. Sometimes I go to the red light and go, I'll stop twice next time. So yeah, I understand that you're not always going to do it right, but if we keep on, it's like practicing. You just keep practicing what you know. The Lord honors that. So we're going to be praying for you, praying for ourselves in this, because you're going to get confronted. We always do. That's Levi. Sorry about that. But we're going to pray for you in that and pray that we all can move toward this in a godly way.
Amen.
Thank you, Karen, for being with me.
It was fun.
Yeah. So we'll see you next time. You don't forget to subscribe so you know when the next episode comes on. See you later. Thank you for joining me today on this episode of Real Life with Deb Waterbury. I hope it's been a blessing to you as much as it was to me. If you want any of my books or information on articles or any of my speaking engagements, you can go to my website at debwaterbury.com. God bless you.